Welcome to today's video. Get ready for a jaw-dropping tale of betrayal, manipulation, and heartbreak as we dive into the explosive story of Evan and Sophia. What starts as a picture-perfect marriage quickly unravels into a shocking web of lies and infidelity. A cunning third party, relentless schemes, and emotional warfare threaten everything they've built together. Stay tuned as we uncover every devastating twist and turn in this gripping saga that will leave you questioning trust, loyalty, and love. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories. Let me take you back to the year 2017, in the quaint suburban town of Willow Ridge. It's the kind of place where everyone knows each other, but not well enough to see the cracks behind the perfectly painted fences. Our story starts on a sunny morning, the kind that makes you want to believe in new beginnings, or maybe just hides the secrets brewing beneath the surface. Meet Evan Miller, a 38-year-old marketing consultant with a knack for creating the perfect pitch, but lately he's been struggling to perfect his own life. He's one of those people who thrives on control, color-coded calendars, strict gym routines, and a work ethic that earned him a corner office downtown. He seems like the picture of success, but, as we know, appearances can be deceiving. Evan's wife, Sophia, is everything Evan isn't: carefree, artistic, and unpredictable. She's a painter who spends her days chasing inspiration and her evenings drinking wine while discussing her latest ideas for an art show. Sophia's charm lies in her spontaneity, the way she sees beauty in chaos. That's what drew Evan to her in the first place. She was the antidote to his rigid world, a splash of color in his otherwise black and white life. But lately, things haven't been as vibrant as they used to be. 8 years into their marriage, Evan has noticed small but significant changes. Sophia's once spontaneous affection now feels rehearsed. Her laughter doesn't reach her eyes, and the late-night painting sessions have been replaced with vague meetings with gallery curators. Now, enter Lila Jacobs, Evan's ambitious co-worker. She's sharp, witty, and, according to office gossip, dangerously persuasive. Lila's the kind of person who knows exactly what she wants and doesn't mind crossing a few lines to get it. She's been working closely with Evan on a major project, and while their professional relationship seems harmless on the surface, the unspoken tension between them is impossible to ignore. But wait, this isn't about Evan's wandering eyes or a typical workplace flirtation. No, the storm brewing in Willow Ridge is much more complicated than that. Evan's morning starts like clockwork: 5:30 a.m., alarm, a quick workout, and black coffee as he scrolls through his emails. He's standing in the kitchen of their modern home, a sleek, open space filled with Sophia's eclectic decor. Abstract paintings, mismatched vases, and a chalkboard wall covered in quotes about art and freedom. Sophia walks in, her silk robe tied loosely around her waist. She's barefoot, holding a steaming cup of tea. "Morning," she says, her voice soft but distant. Evan glances up, offering her a small smile. "Morning. You're up early." Sophia shrugs. "Couldn't sleep, too many ideas swirling in my head." It's a familiar excuse. Evan nods, pretending not to notice the bags under her eyes or the way she clutches her phone a little too tightly. "Big plans today?" he asks casually. She hesitates, then places her phone on the counter, face down. "Just meeting with a potential buyer. Nothing exciting." Her answer should put him at ease, but it doesn't. Something about her tone feels off. Evan doesn't press her, though he's learned that pushing too hard only makes her retreat further. Later that morning, Evan arrives at the marketing firm where he's been working for nearly a decade. The office buzzes with energy as employees prepare for a high-stakes pitch to one of their biggest clients. Lila is already at her desk, her red lipstick bold against her crisp white blouse. She looks up as Evan walks by, flashing him a sly smile. "Good morning, boss. Ready to knock their socks off?" Evan chuckles, shaking his head. "I don't know if socks will be flying, but I'm ready." Their banter is light, professional, for now, but there's an undercurrent of familiarity that makes Evan slightly uncomfortable. Or maybe it's the way Lila's gaze lingers just a second too long. Either way, he brushes it off, focusing on the task at hand. The meeting is a success, of course. Lila's pitch is flawless, her confidence infectious. As the clients leave, she turns to Evan, a triumphant grin on her face. "Drinks to celebrate tonight?" she asks, her tone casual but her eyes suggestive. Evan hesitates. It's harmless, right? A team outing after a win, but something tells him it's not a good idea. "Maybe another time," he says, offering her an apologetic smile. Lila shrugs, but there's a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. "Suit yourself." Meanwhile, Sophia is downtown, standing in a small, dimly lit gallery. She's dressed in a flowy dress and ankle boots, her hair loosely tied back. Across from her is Ryan Blake, a fellow artist and longtime friend. Ryan's the kind of person who exudes effortless charm. A little too much, if you ask Evan. "I can't thank you enough for helping me with this," Sophia says, her voice warm and sincere. Ryan smiles, brushing off her gratitude. "Come on, Sophia. You know I'd do anything for you." They're discussing an upcoming show, but the way Ryan leans in just a little too close suggests there's more to their relationship than art. Sophia doesn't pull away. Instead, she laughs at something he says, her smile reaching her eyes for the first time in weeks. That evening, Evan is back home, scrolling through Netflix while Sophia claims she's running errands. His mind keeps drifting back to their conversation that morning, the way she avoided his questions and clung to her phone. Curiosity gets the better of him. He walks into the kitchen and picks up her phone, which she left charging on the counter. It's locked, of course, but a notification lights up the screen, a text from Ryan. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Hope you're ready for some fun." Evan's stomach drops. He places the phone back down as if it burned him. His mind races, piecing together moments that now seem glaringly obvious. The late nights, the cryptic excuses, the sudden surge of creativity that coincided with her meetings. He doesn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, he decides to keep his suspicions to himself and wait for more proof. Sophia returns home around 10 p.m., her cheeks flushed and her hair slightly tousled. "Sorry I'm late," she says, placing a paper bag on the counter. "I stopped by that new bakery you love, got your favorite." Evan forces a smile. "Thanks," he says, his voice even. She's trying, he tells himself. But as they sit across from each other, the silence between them feels heavier than usual, and for the first time, Evan begins to wonder if his perfect life is unraveling before his eyes. Last we left off, Evan had discovered the first crack in his seemingly perfect marriage. A text from Ryan, Sophia's charming friend. It was a single message, but it carried the weight of all his suspicions. Of course, Evan didn't confront her right away. After all, if there's one thing Evan is good at, it's planning, and that's exactly what he intended to do next. Let's dive deeper into the story as the tension between these characters begins to boil over. The next morning, the Miller household is quiet. Too quiet. Evan watches Sophia move through her morning routine, noticing the way she seems overly cheerful, almost rehearsed. She's humming a tune, one he vaguely remembers hearing on the radio in her car last week. "You're in a good mood," he says, his tone casual but probing. Sophia glances at him, her smile a little too bright. I think last night really helped. Spending time with Ryan always sparks my creativity." There it is again, Ryan. His name is starting to feel like a thorn in Evan's side, and yet he doesn't flinch. Instead, he nods, offering her a tight-lipped smile. That's great. But inside, his mind is a storm. He's not just suspicious now, he's determined. At the office, Evan buries himself in work. He needs a distraction, something to keep his mind off Sophia and the text he found. But Lila, ever observant, notices his unease. "Rough morning?" she asks, leaning against the doorframe of his office. Evan looks up, debating whether to brush her off or let her in. Lila has a way of prying, but she's also sharp, and right now, Evan could use someone sharp on his side. "Just personal stuff," he admits finally. Lila steps inside, closing the door behind her. "Personal stuff, huh? That's vague. Want to talk about it, or should I guess?" Evan chuckles despite himself. There's something disarming about her confidence. "It's nothing, just some issues at home." Lila raises an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Wife problems?" Her tone is light, but her words hit a nerve Evan doesn't respond, and Lila takes his silence as confirmation. "Look, I'm no therapist, but if you ever need to vent, I'm a good listener. No judgment." "Thanks," Evan says, his voice softer now. He doesn't say more, but the offer lingers in the back of his mind. That evening, Evan and Sophia attend a dinner party hosted by one of Sophia's gallery friends. It's the kind of event Sophia loves: wine, art talk, and plenty of chances to network. But for Evan, it feels like walking into enemy territory. The moment they arrive, he spots Ryan across the room, laughing with a group of artists. His charm is palpable, his presence magnetic. Sophia, of course, notices him too. Her face lights up in a way that makes Evan's stomach churn. As the evening progresses, Evan finds himself cornered by a chatty curator while Sophia and Ryan drift off together. He tries to focus on the conversation, but his eyes keep darting to where they're standing. They're too close, their laughter too easy. It's like watching a scene from someone else's life, a life he doesn't recognize. On the drive home, the air between them is thick with unspoken words. Evan grips the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Sophia, sensing his tension, breaks the silence. "Are you okay? You've been quiet all night." Evan glances at her, debating whether to speak his mind. "Just tired," he lies. Sophia nods, but her gaze lingers on him, searching for something she can't quite find. "You know, Ryan asked if we'd like to join him for dinner next week. I told him I'd check with you." And there it is, the name again, like a punch to the gut. "Sure," Evan says, his tone clipped. "Why not?" Sophia doesn't push further, but the tension between them is palpable. The next day, while Sophia is out, Evan decides to investigate. He pulls up their home computer and starts searching through her files. It feels wrong, like crossing a line, but he can't shake the feeling that something is being hidden from him. At first, there's nothing unusual: photos, emails, documents from her art shows, but then he finds a folder labeled Personal. Inside are photos of Sophia and Ryan, laughing at the gallery, sharing a meal, even standing close together in what looks like Ryan's studio. Evan's breath catches. He stares at the screen, his heart pounding. These aren't just friendly photos. They're intimate, too intimate. He saves the files to a USB drive, his hands trembling. He doesn't know what he'll do with them yet, but he knows this is just the beginning. Back at the office, Lila notices the dark circles under Evan's eyes. "Okay, spill," she says, closing the door to his office. "You look like you haven't slept in days." Evan hesitates, but then something in him snaps. He tells her everything: Sophia's late nights, the text from Ryan, the photos. Lila listens intently, her expression unreadable. "Look," she says finally, "I don't know your wife, but I do know people, and this Ryan guy, he sounds like trouble. You need to figure out what you want to do. Do you confront her, or do you let it slide?" Evan sighs, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. I feel like if I confront her, I'll lose the upper hand." Lila nods. "Then don't, not yet. Get all the facts first. If she's hiding something, you need to know exactly what it is before you make a move. Evan takes Lila's advice to heart. Over the next few days, he keeps a close eye on Sophia, watching for any inconsistencies in her stories. He starts tracking her movements, noting when she leaves and when she returns. One evening, while Sophia is in the shower, he checks her phone again. This time, he finds a series of messages from Ryan. They're casual at first, mentions of art and gallery events, but then they take a turn. "I can't stop thinking about last night. I hate that we have to hide this." Evan feels a wave of anger and betrayal wash over him, but instead of confronting her, he takes screenshots, saving them to his USB drive. He's building a case, piece by damning piece. A week later, Sophia leaves for another meeting with Ryan. Evan follows her this time, keeping his distance as she drives to a small restaurant on the outskirts of town. He watches from his car as she and Ryan enter, their body language unmistakable. They're not just meeting for work. This is something else entirely. Evan sits in his car, his mind racing. He has the proof he needs now, but the question remains, what does he do next? The tension between Evan and Sophia is reaching its peak, but trust me, things are only going to get more intense from here. What will Evan do with the evidence he's gathered, and how will Sophia react when the truth comes to light? If you're hooked on this story, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And of course, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next part of this explosive tale. Stay tuned, because we're just getting started. When we last left off, Evan was sitting in his car watching Sophia and Ryan walk into that small, out-of-the-way restaurant. He had the proof he needed, the texts, the photos, and now the undeniable evidence of her betrayal right in front of him. But what happens when the walls close in and the perfect life you've built starts to crumble? Let's find out as the tension between Evan and Sophia reaches its boiling point. Evan grips the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He's parked a block away from the restaurant, heart pounding as he debates his next move. He could confront them right here, right now, storm into the restaurant and demand answers. But that's not his style, is it? Evan Miller is a planner, a strategist. And if there's one thing he's learned, it's that acting on impulse rarely pays off. Instead, he reaches for his phone. He snaps a few photos of Sophia and Ryan through the restaurant window, his camera capturing their easy smiles and too close body language. Then he drives away, leaving the confrontation for another day. Back at home, Evan sits in the dark, the images of Sophia and Ryan flashing through his mind like a slideshow of betrayal. He pours himself a glass of whiskey and stares at the USB drive sitting on the counter. He's not ready to use it yet, but it feels like a ticking time bomb in his hands. The next day, Evan meets Lila for coffee. It's not unusual for them to grab a cup after work, but this time, the air between them feels different, charged, somehow. Lila notices the tension in his posture, the dark circles under his eyes. "You're spiraling, Evan," she says, her tone sharp but not unkind. "Whatever's going on, it's eating you alive." Evan sighs, running a hand through his hair. He hasn't told her about following Sophia to the restaurant yet. Part of him wants to keep it to himself, but another part of him knows he needs someone to talk to, someone who won't judge him. "I followed her," he admits finally. "To a restaurant with him." Lila raises an eyebrow. "And?" "And nothing," Evan says, his voice bitter. "I just sat there like an idiot, taking pictures while they laughed and drank and acted like I didn't exist." Lila leans forward, her eyes narrowing. "Look, I'm not saying you should torch your marriage and go full scorched earth on her, but actually, that's exactly what I'm saying. You deserve better. Evan, stop letting her walk all over you." Her words hit harder than he expects. For the first time, Evan feels a flicker of something other than anger, resolve. That evening, Sophia comes home late again. Evan is sitting in the living room, his laptop open, the USB drive plugged in. He's been reviewing the evidence, organizing it, piecing it together like a puzzle he wishes he didn't have to solve. "Long day?" he asks as Sophia walks in, her hair slightly disheveled, the smell of wine clinging to her clothes. Sophia hesitates, her smile faltering. "Yeah, the gallery meeting ran late. You know how it is." Evan nods, but there's no warmth in his gaze. "I do." She doesn't seem to notice the edge in his tone. Instead, she moves to the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water. Evan watches her, his mind racing. He's been waiting for the right moment to confront her, but now that she's here, standing just a few feet away, the words feel stuck in his throat. Finally, he speaks. "Sophia, can I ask you something?" She turns to him, her expression cautious. "Of course, what's on your mind? Do you think honesty is important in a marriage?" His voice is calm, almost too calm. Sophia blinks, caught off guard. "Of course, why would you even ask that?" Evan shrugs, leaning back in his chair. "I don't know, just something I've been thinking about lately." The tension in the room is palpable, but Sophia doesn't push further. She finishes her water and mumbles something about needing to shower before disappearing down the hall. Evan watches her go, his jaw clenched. The confrontation he's been planning will have to wait. 2 days later, Evan decides to take things a step further. While Sophia is at another meeting, he drives to Ryan's studio. It's a small, industrial space tucked away in a part of town Evan rarely visits. He parks a block away and walks the rest of the distance, his heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and dread. When he reaches the studio, he tries the door locked. Of course, but Evan isn't the kind of person to give up easily. He walks around the building, searching for another way in. Finally, he spots a side window that's slightly ajar. It takes some effort, but he manages to pry it open and climb inside. The studio is dimly lit, the smell of paint and turpentine heavy in the air. Canvases are stacked against the walls, and a large easel stands in the center of the room, holding a half-finished painting. Evan moves quickly, searching for anything that might confirm his suspicions. He finds it in Ryan's desk, a stack of photographs. Most are harmless, but a few show Sophia in poses that are far too intimate for Evan's liking. His hands tremble as he flips through them, his chest tight with rage. Evan takes the photos, stuffing them into his jacket as he climbs back out the window. He can't shake the feeling that he's crossed a line he can never uncross. That night, Evan lays the photos on the dining room table. When Sophia walks in, she freezes, her eyes darting between the images and Evan's face. "What is this?" she whispers, her voice shaking. "You tell me," Evan says, his tone icy, "because from where I'm sitting, it looks like the proof I've been waiting for." Sophia's face crumples, her bravado slipping away. "Evan, Don't," he interrupts. "Don't lie to me. Not anymore." For the first time, Sophia seems genuinely at a loss for words. She sinks into a chair, her hands trembling. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she says finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Evan laughs, but there's no humor in it. "You didn't mean for it to happen? That's the best you've got?" "I was lonely," she says, tears streaming down her face. "You're always working, always focused on everything but us and Ryan. He listened. He made me feel seen." Evan stares at her, his anger warring with a deep, aching sadness. "So you decided to destroy everything we built together because you were lonely?" Sophia doesn't respond. She just sits there, sobbing quietly. And for the first time, Evan feels like he's truly seeing her. Not the woman he married, but the stranger she's become. The tension has reached its peak, but this story is far from over. Evan and Sophia's confrontation is just the beginning of the fallout, and trust me, things are about to get even more intense. If you're still with me, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of this explosive story. Stay tuned, because the climax is just around the corner. The truth is, Sophia's betrayal isn't a suspicion anymore. It's a cold, undeniable fact. And while Evan could have walked away, he didn't. Instead, he's chosen to face the storm head-on. But what happens when the truth is just the beginning? When lies unravel and secrets cut deeper than anyone imagined? Stick with me as we dive into the heart of this story, where every decision carries a price. The morning after Evan confronted Sophia is heavy with silence. She's sitting at the kitchen table, a mug of untouched coffee in front of her. Evan stands by the sink, staring out the window as if the answers to his questions might be somewhere on the horizon. Finally, Sophia speaks, her voice hoarse. "What happens now?" Evan turns to her, his expression unreadable. "That's up to you." Her brow furrows. "Me? You made the choices that brought us here," he says, his tone cold. "So, yeah, you get to decide how this ends." The weight of his words lands hard. Sophia looks down, her hands trembling. She opens her mouth to speak but closes it again, as though the apology she wants to offer isn't enough. Evan doesn't wait for her to find the right words. He grabs his jacket and leaves, the door closing behind him with a finality that makes Sophia flinch. Evan doesn't go to work. Instead, he drives aimlessly, the USB drive and photos sitting on the passenger seat like silent witnesses to everything falling apart. Eventually, he ends up at a park, one he and Sophia used to visit early in their marriage. It's quiet, save for the rustle of leaves in the wind. He pulls out his phone and dials a number he hasn't used in years. "Tony," he says when his brother answers. "I need to talk." Tony is older, divorced, and painfully familiar with the kind of mess Evan finds himself in. They meet at a diner, where Evan lays everything out: the photos, the texts, the confrontation. Tony listens, his expression grim. "You've got two options," he says finally. "You fight for your marriage, or you walk away. But whatever you choose, make sure it's what you want, not what you think you should do." Evan nods, but Tony isn't done. "And don't let her guilt you into staying. If she's sorry, she'll prove it. If she's not, well, you've got your answer." Back at home, Sophia is pacing the living room. She's tried texting Evan, but he hasn't responded. Her mind races, replaying the confrontation, the photos, the coldness in his voice. For the first time, she's forced to confront the reality of what she's done. Not just the affair, but the damage it's caused. She picks up her phone and dials Ryan. "We can't do this anymore," she says the moment he answers. Ryan's voice is calm, almost amused. "Sophia, don't overreact. He'll get over it." "No," she snaps. "You don't understand. It's over. I can't keep lying to him." There's a pause, then a low chuckle. "If that's what you want, fine, but don't expect me to wait around." Sophia hangs up, tears streaming down her face. She feels lost, adrift in a sea of her own making. Meanwhile, Evan is at the office, trying to focus on work. Lila notices his distracted state and closes the door to his office. "You're a mess," she says bluntly, but her tone is softer than usual. Evan sighs, running a hand through his hair. "It's been a rough couple of days." Lila leans against his desk, her gaze steady. "Look, I know it's not my place, but if you ever need a fresh start, new city, new job, I've got connections." Her words catch him off guard. "Are you serious?" She nods. Sometimes the best way to move on is to leave everything behind. Evan doesn't respond, but the idea plants itself in his mind, a tiny seed of possibility. That evening, Evan comes home to find Sophia waiting for him. She looks small, almost fragile, her hands clenched in her lap. "I ended it," she says the moment he walks in. Evan stops in his tracks. "You ended what?" "Ryan," she says, her voice breaking. "I told him it was over. I want to fix this, Evan. I want us to be okay." He stares at her, the anger and sadness warring within him. "You want us to be okay after everything you've done?" "I know I don't deserve it," she says quickly, "but I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Evan exhales, the weight of her words pressing down on him. "You think you can just erase this, like it didn't happen?" "No," she says, tears streaming down her face, "but I can try to be better. I can try to be the person you deserve." Evan doesn't respond right away. Instead, he walks past her, heading to the bedroom. Sophia sits alone, the silence between them more damning than any words could be. Days later, Evan is cleaning out a drawer in the office when he finds something unexpected, a small, locked journal. It's Sophia's. He hesitates, knowing it's a breach of privacy, but his curiosity gets the better of him. The entries are sporadic, but one catches his eye. It's dated months ago, around the time the affair began. In it, Sophia writes about feeling neglected, unseen, and drawn to Ryan because he made her feel alive again. But it's the last line that hits hardest. "I know it's wrong, but I can't stop myself. It's like I'm falling and I don't know how to stop." Evan closes the journal, his chest tight. For the first time, he sees the affair not as a deliberate act of malice, but as a symptom of something deeper, something broken in both of them. That night, Evan sits across from Sophia at the dinner table. The air between them is heavy, but there's a new resolve in his eyes. "I read your journal," he says bluntly. Sophia's eyes widen. "You... what?" "I needed to understand," he says. "I still don't. Not completely. But I see now that this wasn't just about you and Ryan. It was about us." Sophia looks down, ashamed. "I'm sorry," she whispers. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am." Evan nods, his expression softening. "I don't know if we can fix this, but if we're going to try, it has to start with honesty, no more lies." Sophia meets his gaze, her eyes filled with tears. "I promise." And just like that, the stakes have never been higher. Evan and Sophia are standing at a crossroads, but the path forward is anything but clear. Can they rebuild what's been broken, or is the damage too great? If you're as invested in this story as I am, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And, of course, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next part of this gripping tale. Stay tuned, because the climax is coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. We've reached the boiling point. Evan and Sophia are caught in the fallout of their broken trust. And while they've begun to face the truth, the journey forward is anything but simple. Secrets have a way of surfacing, and in this part of the story, everything they've avoided comes crashing down. Let's dive into the heart of the storm and see where it takes us. It's been a week since Evan and Sophia's conversation about honesty. The tension between them hasn't disappeared, but it feels different. There's a cautious effort on both sides, a quiet acknowledgement that rebuilding, however impossible it seems, might be worth a try. One evening, as they sit on the couch watching TV, Sophia turns to Evan. "Do you want to come to my next gallery opening?" Evan glances at her, surprised. "You want me there?" She nods. "It's important to me, and I think it's time we start showing up for each other again." Her words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Evan considers them carefully before nodding. "Okay, I'll be there." The night of the gallery opening arrives. Evan feels out of place as he mingles with Sophia's art world friends, their conversations full of pretentious jargon he doesn't understand. But he stays close to Sophia, determined to make an effort. Then, just as he's beginning to relax, he sees him, Ryan. He's standing across the room, a drink in hand, his eyes scanning the crowd. When they land on Sophia, his face lights up. Evan stiffens, his pulse quickening. Sophia notices his reaction and follows his gaze. When she sees Ryan, her face pales. "Evan," she begins, her voice shaking. "I didn't know he'd be here." "Didn't you?" Evan's voice is low, sharp. Before she can respond, Ryan approaches, his signature smirk firmly in place. "Sophia," he says smoothly, "you look stunning as always." Evan steps between them, his posture tense. "We were just leaving." Sophia looks between them, torn. "Evan, please!" But he doesn't wait for her to finish. He grabs her hand and leads her out of the gallery, leaving Ryan standing alone, his smirk fading. Back at home, the tension between Evan and Sophia explodes. "Why didn't you tell me he might be there?" Evan demands, his voice rising. "I didn't know," Sophia shouts back. "I haven't talked to him since I ended it, I swear." Evan shakes his head, pacing the room. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Watching him look at you like that? Like he still owns you?" "He doesn't own me," Sophia snaps. "And neither do you. Evan, I'm trying, okay? I'm trying to fix this, but you won't let me." "Maybe because I don't know if it's worth fixing," Evan says, his voice quieter now, but no less cutting. Sophia flinches as if he's slapped her. "Do you really mean that?" Evan doesn't answer. Instead, he walks out of the room, leaving Sophia alone with her tears. The next day, Sophia receives a message she doesn't expect. One from Ryan. He's waiting outside her gallery, leaning casually against his car. "What do you want, Ryan?" she asks, her voice weary. "To talk," he says, his tone smooth. "You can't just cut me off like that, Sophia. We had something special." Sophia crosses her arms, her jaw tightening. "We didn't have anything. I made a mistake, and I'm trying to fix it." Ryan steps closer, his expression hardening. "You really think he's going to forgive you? You think you can go back to playing house and pretend this never happened?" "That's none of your business," Sophia snaps. "Stay away from me, Ryan." But as she turns to leave, his words stop her cold. "If you walk away, I'll make sure Evan finds out everything, every detail." Sophia freezes, her heart racing. She doesn't look back as she walks away, but Ryan's threat lingers in her mind like a dark cloud. Meanwhile, Evan is sitting in his car outside a coffee shop, staring at his phone. He's been replaying the argument with Sophia over and over in his mind, his anger giving way to a deeper, more painful emotion, uncertainty. He pulls up Lila's number and hesitates before dialing. When she answers, her voice is warm but cautious. "Evan, what's up?" "I need to talk," he says. "Can we meet?" They agree to meet at the coffee shop, and when Evan arrives, Lila is already there, a concerned look on her face. He tells her about the gallery, about Ryan, about his doubts. "I don't know if I can do this," he admits. "I don't know if I can ever trust her again." Lila leans back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "Trust takes time, Evan, and it's okay if you're not ready to give it yet, but you have to ask yourself, what do you want? Not what she wants or what Ryan wants. What do you want?" Evan doesn't answer, but her words stay with him long after he leaves. That evening, Evan comes home to find Sophia sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. She looks up as he enters, her expression a mix of guilt and desperation. "I need to tell you something," she says, her voice trembling. Evan sits across from her, his heart pounding. "What is it?" Sophia takes a deep breath, her hands shaking. "Ryan, he threatened me. He said if I don't see him, he'll tell you everything, every detail." Evan's jaw tightens, anger flashing in his eyes. "He's blackmailing you?" Sophia nods, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know what to do. I was scared." Evan stares at her, his mind racing. He feels a surge of protectiveness he didn't expect, but it's mixed with anger at Ryan, at Sophia, at the situation they've both created. "We'll handle this," he says finally, his voice steady. "Together." The next day, Evan and Sophia drive to Ryan's studio. Evan's hands are clenched on the steering wheel, his jaw set in determination. When they arrive, Ryan greets them with his usual smirk, but it falters when he sees Evan's expression. "We need to talk," Evan says, his voice cold. Ryan shrugs, feigning nonchalance. "About what?" "About you staying the hell away from my wife," Evan snaps. "And about the little threats you've been making." Ryan's smirk returns, but there's a flicker of unease in his eyes. "What are you going to do?" "Evan hit me. That's not going to solve anything." Evan steps closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You're going to leave us alone. No texts, no calls, no threats. If you so much as look at Sophia again, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are." Ryan's confidence falters, and he takes a step back. "Fine," he mutters. "She's not worth the trouble anyway." Evan doesn't respond. He turns and walks out, Sophia following close behind. The confrontation with Ryan marks a turning point, but the road ahead is still uncertain. Can Evan and Sophia rebuild their relationship, or are some wounds too deep to heal? If you've been holding your breath, now's the time to exhale, but don't get too comfortable. There's still more to come. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next chapter in this gripping tale. Stay tuned, because the climax is just around the corner. The stakes have never been higher. Evan and Sophia are standing on the edge, caught between rebuilding their fractured marriage and the fallout from Ryan's manipulation. But the climax of this story isn't just about decisions, it's about actions. With secrets unraveling and emotions running high, let's dive into the pivotal moments that bring this drama to its breaking point. After leaving Ryan's studio, Evan and Sophia sit silently in the car. The confrontation should feel like a victory, but the tension between them lingers, heavy and unresolved. Evan's grip on the steering wheel tightens as he navigates the city streets, his thoughts racing. Sophia finally breaks the silence. "Do you think he'll stay away?" Evan doesn't look at her. "He will. He knows I'm serious." "But what about us?" Her voice is quiet, almost a whisper. Evan exhales sharply, pulling into their driveway. He turns off the engine and looks at her, his eyes filled with a mix of exhaustion and frustration. "I don't know, Sophia. I really don't." The words hang in the air as they exit the car and walk into the house, the weight of everything unsaid following them inside. The next day, Evan is back at work, but his focus is shattered. Lila notices his distraction and knocks on the door to his office. "You look like hell," she says, closing the door behind her. "Thanks," Evan replies dryly, rubbing his temples. "I'm serious," she continues. "You can't keep going like this. If you're going to fight for her, fight. If you're going to leave, leave. But sitting in limbo isn't doing you any favors." Evan sighs, leaning back in his chair. "It's not that simple." "It never is," Lila says, her tone softening. "But you can't let this destroy you. You're better than that." Her words strike a chord, and for the first time, Evan allows himself to consider what moving forward, really moving forward, might look like. At home, Sophia spends hours pacing the house, her thoughts a whirlwind of guilt and fear. She's lost count of how many times she's picked up her phone to text Evan, only to put it down again, unsure of what to say. She eventually finds herself in the garage, digging through old boxes among the clutter. She finds a photo album from their early years together, pictures of vacations, birthdays, and quiet moments that now feel like a lifetime ago. As she flips through the pages, tears blur her vision. She realizes how much she's taken for granted, how much she's risked, and for what, a fleeting connection with someone who was never worth it. Clutching the album to her chest, Sophia resolves to fight for her marriage, no matter how hard it might be. That evening, Sophia sits Evan down in the living room. Her hands are shaking, but her voice is steady. "I know I've hurt you," she begins. "And I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I want to try. I want to fix this." Evan watches her, his expression unreadable. "And how do you propose we do that?" "Counseling," she says. "Together to figure out if there's anything left to save." Evan leans back, crossing his arms. "You really think counseling is going to fix this?" "I don't know," she admits, "but it's a start, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." He doesn't respond right away, and the silence stretches between them. Finally, he nods. "Okay, we'll try." Their first counseling session is awkward, to say the least. The therapist, a kind but firm woman named Dr. Henson, starts by asking them to share their feelings. Sophia goes first, her voice trembling. "I've been selfish. I've made mistakes. And I've hurt the person I love most in the world." Evan listens, his jaw clenched. When it's his turn, his words are sharp but honest. "I feel betrayed, like everything we built was a lie." Dr. Henson guides them through the session, encouraging open communication. By the end, it's clear they have a long way to go, but for the first time, they've taken a step toward understanding each other. Just when things seem to be settling, Ryan resurfaces. Sophia receives an email late one night, a single sentence that sends chills down her spine. "You can't erase me." She doesn't tell Evan, fearing it will undo the fragile progress they've made, but the email eats away at her, a constant reminder of the damage she's caused. A few days later, Evan notices her unease. "What's going on?" he asks, his tone concerned. "Nothing," she lies, forcing a smile. "Just work stress." But Evan knows her too well. He doesn't press, but the seed of doubt is planted. One evening, as they're sitting down to dinner, Evan's phone buzzes with a notification. It's an email from an anonymous sender. Curious, he opens it, and his heart sinks. It's a photo of Sophia and Ryan, taken during their affair. Attached is a message. "Thought you should know what she's hiding." Evan slams his phone down, his appetite gone. "Care to explain this?" he demands, showing Sophia the email. Sophia's face drains of color. "Evan, I can explain—" "Don't," he interrupts, his voice shaking. "Don't lie to me again." Tears spill down her cheeks as she tries to find the words. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could handle it." "Well, you didn't," he snaps. "You lied again." The argument spirals, both of them shouting over each other until Sophia breaks down completely. "I don't know how to fix this," she sobs. "I don't know how to make you believe me." Evan's voice softens, but the pain in his eyes is unmistakable. "Maybe you can't." After the argument, Evan drives to the park where they used to spend lazy Sunday afternoons. He sits on a bench, staring at the empty playground, and reflects on everything: Sophia's betrayal, Ryan's manipulation, and his own role in their fractured marriage. For the first time, he considers the possibility that holding on to the past might be doing more harm than good. Maybe the only way forward is to let go. The tension has reached its peak, and the decisions Evan and Sophia make now will determine everything. Will they choose to rebuild? Or is this the end of their story? Stay tuned, because the climax is just around the corner. And hey, if you're as hooked as I am, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And of course, hit that subscribe button so you're the first to know when the next part drops. This story isn't over yet. Stay tuned. Everything is unraveling faster than anyone expected. Evan and Sophia's fragile attempts at reconciliation have hit a breaking point, and with Ryan still lurking in the shadows, the stakes couldn't be higher. This is the moment where secrets are exposed, choices are made, and the truth finally takes center stage. Let's dive into the heart of this storm. Evan sits in his car in the driveway, staring at the house. The faint glow of the living room light spills through the window, and for a moment he considers driving away, just leaving it all behind. But he takes a deep breath, grabs his briefcase, and heads inside. Sophia is in the kitchen, setting the table. She looks up when he enters, her smile tentative. Dinner's almost ready. Evan nods but doesn't respond. He places his briefcase by the door and washes his hands, his movements mechanical. As they sit down to eat, the silence between them is deafening. Finally, Sophia speaks. "I know things are hard right now, but I'm still here. I'm still trying." Evan looks at her, his expression unreadable. "I know, but trying doesn't erase what's already happened." Her face falls, and for the rest of the meal, they eat in silence. Meanwhile, Ryan sits in his dimly lit apartment, scrolling through photos of Sophia on his phone. He's drunk, his confidence morphing into obsession. He dials her number, but it goes straight to voicemail. Frustrated, he hurls his phone across the room. "You can't ignore me forever," he mutters, grabbing his laptop. He opens his email and begins typing, his eyes narrowing as he crafts a message designed to reignite chaos. Minutes later, Sophia's phone buzzes with an alert. She hesitates before opening the email, her stomach sinking when she sees Ryan's name. The message is simple. "Miss me, you'll hear from me soon." Sophia's hands tremble as she deletes the email, her mind racing. She knows Ryan isn't bluffing, and she knows Evan won't forgive her if this continues. Later that night, Sophia approaches Evan in their bedroom. He's reading, but she can tell he's not really focused on the words. "I got another email from him," she blurts out. Evan looks up sharply. "What did it say?" "Just more threats," she admits, her voice small. "I didn't respond." Evan closes his book, his jaw tightening. "You need to block him everywhere. No more chances, Sophia." "I already have," she says quickly. "But he keeps finding ways to contact me." Evan stands, his frustration evident. "Then we'll find another way to stop him. But if you're hiding anything else, anything, you need to tell me now." Sophia shakes her head, tears filling her eyes. "I'm not, I swear." Evan nods, his expression softening slightly. "Okay, but this is it, Sophia. No more lies." The next day, Evan receives a call from his boss, summoning him to an urgent meeting. When he arrives, he's blindsided by what's waiting for him. Ryan, sitting smugly across the conference table. "What is he doing here?" Evan demands, his voice tight with anger. His boss gestures for him to sit. "Apparently, Mr. Ryan has some concerns about your conduct." Evan's stomach drops as Ryan produces a folder filled with screenshots, emails, photos, and fabricated messages designed to make it look like Evan was aware of and complicit in Sophia's affair. "This is ridiculous," Evan snaps. "You're taking the word of a liar over mine?" His boss looks uncomfortable. "We're not making any decisions yet, but we need to investigate." As the meeting ends, Ryan leans in close to Evan, his voice low and smug. "You're not the only one who can fight dirty." When Evan tells Sophia about the meeting, she's furious. "He's trying to ruin your life now. That's it. I'm going to handle this." "What are you going to do?" Evan asks, his skepticism clear. "I'm going to confront him," she says firmly. "Alone." Evan shakes his head. "No way, you're not facing him by yourself." "I have to," Sophia insists. "He's doing this because of me, and I won't let him destroy you." Evan hesitates but eventually nods. "Be careful." Sophia meets Ryan at a crowded cafe, ensuring she's in a public place. Ryan's smug grin falters when he sees the determination in her eyes. "This ends now," she says, her voice steady. "Or what?" Ryan sneers. You're not exactly in a position to make demands." Sophia leans forward, her voice low but fierce. "You think you're untouchable? You're not. I've kept every message you've sent, every threat. And if you keep this up, I'll go to the police." Ryan's confidence wavers, but he quickly recovers. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me," Sophia says, standing. "You've already lost me, Ryan. Don't make things worse for yourself." As she walks away, Ryan sits frozen, his smirk replaced by uncertainty. While Sophia is at the cafe, Evan takes a walk through their neighborhood. He passes the park where they had their first date, the restaurant where they celebrated their anniversary. Each memory tugs at him, reminding him of the love they once shared. For the first time, he allows himself to consider forgiveness, not as a weakness, but as a choice. He realizes that holding on to his anger is only hurting him more. That evening, Sophia returns home to find Evan waiting for her. She tells him about the confrontation with Ryan, and for the first time in weeks, Evan feels a glimmer of hope. "I think we need to get away," he says suddenly. Sophia looks at him surprised. "What do you mean?" "Just for a weekend," he explains. "Somewhere quiet, where we can figure out what's next." Sophia nods, her heart lifting slightly. "I'd like that." The storm isn't over, but Evan and Sophia are finally finding their way through it. With Ryan's threats hanging in the air and their relationship still on shaky ground, the next chapter promises to be the most intense yet. If you've been on the edge of your seat, make sure to like, share, and comment below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next thrilling installment. The climax is just around the corner, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Evan and Sophia have been teetering on the edge of reconciliation, but trust is a fragile thing. While Ryan's interference has added fuel to the fire, this part of the story will bring all the underlying conflicts to a head. With emotions running high and choices becoming clearer, the stage is set for the most critical turning points in their journey. Evan and Sophia pack light bags for their weekend getaway. There's a nervous energy between them, both uncertain about what this trip will bring. Evan chooses a remote cabin by the lake, quiet, serene, and far from the chaos they've been living through. As they drive through winding country roads, the silence between them is punctuated only by the hum of the engine. Sophia breaks it first. "Do you think this will help?" she asks, her voice barely audible. Evan keeps his eyes on the road. "I think we need to try for us or for closure." Sophia nods, understanding that this trip might not end the way she hopes. The cabin is modest but beautiful, surrounded by tall pines and overlooking a glassy lake. For the first time in weeks, Sophia feels a sense of calm as she steps out onto the porch and takes in the view. "This is perfect," she says softly. Evan sets their bags down inside and joins her. "It's peaceful," he agrees. As the sun sets, they share a quiet dinner by the fire. There's an unspoken truce between them, a fragile understanding that this weekend is their chance to start fresh or say goodbye. The next morning, Evan wakes up early and steps outside with a cup of coffee. The crisp air is invigorating, and for a moment, he feels like he can breathe again. But his peace is shattered when he hears a car pulling up the gravel driveway. It's Ryan. Evan's heart pounds as he watches Ryan step out of the car, his posture casual, but his smirk anything but Evan doesn't wait for an invitation. He marches toward him, his anger bubbling to the surface. "What the hell are you doing here?" Evan demands. Ryan shrugs. "I just wanted to talk." "You're not welcome here," Evan snaps. "Leave now." Sophia appears at the door, her face pale as she takes in the scene. "Ryan, what are you doing?" "I'm here to save you from this farce," Ryan says, his tone dripping with condescension. "You don't belong with him, Sophia. You never did." Evan's fists clench, but he forces himself to stay calm. Get back in your car and leave. Ryan smirks, stepping closer. Or what? Sophia steps between them, her voice trembling. Ryan, stop. This isn't about you. Isn't it? Ryan counters, his eyes narrowing. You think you can just cut me out of your life like I don't exist? Yes, Sophia says firmly, surprising both men. I can, and I will. You don't control me, Ryan. Not anymore. Ryan's smirk falters, but he quickly recovers. We'll see about that, he mutters, retreating to his car. Before he drives off, he rolls down the window and says, This isn't over. As the dust settles, Evan turns to Sophia, his expression unreadable. Why didn't you tell me he might show up? I didn't know, she says, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. Evan nods, but the tension between them is thicker than ever. That evening, the stress of Ryan's visit boils over. Evan and Sophia sit across from each other in the living room, the fire crackling between them. You should have handled this sooner, Evan says, his tone sharp. You let him keep interfering. I didn't ask him to show up, Sophia snaps. I've been trying to fix this, Evan, but it's like you're waiting for me to fail. Maybe because I don't know if you can fix it, Evan shoots back. Maybe because I don't know if I even want to try anymore. Sophia flinches, tears welling in her eyes. Then why are we here? Evan sighs, running a hand through his hair. Because I want to believe that we can, but every time I try, something like this happens, and I'm right back where I started. The fight leaves them both drained, and they retreat to separate rooms, the silence heavy with regret. The next morning, Sophia wakes up early and takes a walk along the lake. The stillness of the water mirrors her own turmoil, and for the first time, she allows herself to think about what letting go might look like. Evan joins her after a while, his expression softer than the night before. They walk in silence for a while before he speaks. I don't hate you, he says quietly. I want you to know that. Sophia looks at him, surprised. Then what do you feel? I don't know, he admits. Anger, sadness, confusion, but not hate. Sophia nods, her own emotions too tangled to put into words. They sit on a fallen log by the water, the weight of their unspoken feelings hanging between them. Back in the city, Ryan isn't finished. He begins spreading rumors about Evan at his workplace, sending anonymous tips to his boss about alleged misconduct. Evan receives a call from HR, summoning him to yet another meeting. Why are you letting this guy ruin your life? Lila asks when Evan tells her about the situation. You need to shut him down for good. Evan agrees, but he's torn between protecting his reputation and protecting Sophia from further fallout. Evan and Sophia return from the cabin, both feeling a strange mix of relief and uncertainty. They sit down together and have the conversation they've been avoiding. I can't keep doing this, Evan says. Not with Ryan still trying to control everything. Then let's go to the police, Sophia says. Together. Evan looks at her, surprised. Are you sure? She nods. He needs to face the consequences of what he's done, and we need to move on. Evan and Sophia meet with a detective, providing all the evidence they've collected against Ryan, emails, messages, and proof of his harassment. The detective assures them that an investigation will be opened. For the first time, they feel a sense of control returning to their lives. With Ryan finally being held accountable, Evan and Sophia have taken a huge step toward reclaiming their lives. But the question remains, can they rebuild what's been broken, or is it time to let go? If you've made it this far, you're in for the most intense part yet. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And of course, subscribe to stay tuned for the explosive conclusion to this gripping story. The end is near, and it's going to be unforgettable. We're standing on the edge of everything that's been building so far. Evan and Sophia have made bold choices to take back control. But as Ryan's actions escalate, And as the cracks in their relationship widen, they're forced to confront truths they've avoided for too long. Every decision from here matters, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Evan and Sophia receive a call from Detective Roberts, the officer handling their case. Ryan has been issued a formal warning for harassment, and a restraining order is in place. However, the detective warns them to remain vigilant. "He doesn't seem like the type to back down easily," Roberts says. Evan's grip tightens on the phone. "We'll do whatever it takes to protect ourselves." Sophia listens in, her face pale but determined. She's ready to put an end to this chapter, no matter what it takes. Despite the restraining order, Ryan continues to push the boundaries. He begins posting cryptic messages online, vague enough to avoid legal action, but targeted enough to unsettle Sophia. One post reads, "The truth always comes out in the end. Some people just can't hide forever." Evan discovers the post during a late-night scroll through his phone. He storms into the living room where Sophia is sitting, showing her the screen. "He's taunting us," Evan says, his voice shaking with frustration. Sophia looks at the post, her heart sinking. "What do we do?" "We don't let him win," Evan replies. "Not this time." The next day, Evan meets with Lila to discuss a strategy for addressing the rumors Ryan has spread at work. Lila, ever resourceful, proposes a bold move. "We take control of the narrative," she says. "You've got a spotless record, Evan. If we highlight your achievements and show transparency, it'll drown out the noise." Evan nods, appreciating her support. For the first time in weeks, he feels like he's gaining ground. At home, Sophia begins writing a letter to Evan, a heartfelt apology for everything she's done. She pours her feelings onto the page, hoping it will help him understand just how much she wants to make things right. That evening, Sophia leaves the letter on Evan's bedside table. He finds it later, after she's gone to bed. As he reads her words, a wave of conflicting emotions washes over him: anger, sadness, love, and the faintest glimmer of hope. The letter ends with a simple plea. "I know I've hurt you in ways I can't take back, but I believe in us, Evan. I always have. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, I promise I'll never stop trying to make it up to you." Evan sets the letter down, staring at the ceiling. The weight of her words lingers long after he turns out the light. Ryan's harassment takes a dark turn when Sophia receives a package at their front door. Inside is a single photograph of her and Ryan from their affair, accompanied by a note that reads, "I'll always have this, remember that." Sophia immediately calls Evan, her voice trembling as she explains what happened. Evan races home, his anger boiling over. "This ends now," he says, grabbing his keys. Sophia grabs his arm. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to him," Evan says. "He needs to know there are consequences." Sophia shakes her head. "No, Evan, that's what he wants. He wants to drag you down with him." Evan hesitates, his jaw tightening. "Then what do we do?" "We call the detective," Sophia says, "and we stick to our plan." Detective Roberts arrives at their home to collect the package and photograph. "This is enough to escalate the case," he says. "We'll bring him in for questioning." Evan watches as Roberts drives away, his fists clenched at his sides. "It's not enough," he mutters. Sophia places a hand on his arm. "It will be, we have to trust the system." In the days that follow, Evan and Sophia focus on rebuilding the trust between them. They attend another counseling session, where Dr. Henson encourages them to share their deepest fears. "I'm afraid I'll never be enough for him again," Sophia admits, her voice shaking. Evan's gaze softens as he listens. "And I'm afraid I'll never trust her the way I used to." Dr. Henson guides them through the conversation, helping them see that their fears are rooted in love, not hate. By the end of the session, they leave with a renewed sense of purpose. The moment they've been waiting for finally arrives. Ryan is arrested on charges of harassment and violating the restraining order. The news comes as a relief to Evan and Sophia, though they know the road ahead is still uncertain. As they sit together that evening, Sophia reaches for Evan's hand. "Thank you," she says softly, "for not giving up on us." Evan squeezes her hand, his voice steady. "We're not there yet, but we're getting closer." With Ryan out of the picture, Evan and Sophia face a choice: start fresh together or go their separate ways. They sit down to talk, the tension between them replaced by quiet understanding. "I don't want to lose you," Sophia says, "but I'll understand if you can't stay." Evan looks at her, his expression thoughtful. "I don't know what the future holds, but I think it's worth finding out, together." Tears fill Sophia's eyes as she nods. "I'll do whatever it takes." With Ryan finally out of the picture and Evan and Sophia taking steps toward healing, the story is racing toward its ultimate resolution. But the journey isn't over yet. There's one final chapter that will determine whether they rise from the ashes or part ways for good. If you're invested in this roller coaster of emotions, make sure to like, share, and comment below. And don't forget to subscribe for the epic conclusion to this gripping story. The climax is next, and you won't want to miss it. After all the lies, the betrayals, and the heartbreak, we've reached the final chapter of Evan and Sophia's tumultuous story. The choices they've made, the lessons they've learned, and the lives they've rebuilt bring us to the conclusion of this gripping journey. Let's find out how it all ends. Ryan's arrest marks a significant turning point for Evan and Sophia. While they feel a sense of relief, they also understand that the legal battle isn't over yet. Ryan's arraignment is scheduled for the following week, and both Evan and Sophia are prepared to testify if necessary. Detective Roberts meets with them one last time to review the case. "This will likely end in a plea deal," he says, "but the restraining order and the charges against him will make it clear he can't come near you again." Evan thanks the detective, but there's a lingering unease in his expression. What if he doesn't stop? "He will," Roberts reassures them. "People like him only thrive when they think they're in control. You've taken that away." As Roberts leaves, Sophia turns to Evan, her voice soft. "Do you think it's really over?" Evan looks at her, his gaze steady. "It's over because we're not letting him control us anymore." In the weeks that follow, Evan and Sophia work on rebuilding their lives. They spend more time together, rediscovering the little things that brought them joy before their lives unraveled. From quiet evenings cooking dinner to long walks through the park, they begin to find a rhythm again. During one such evening, Sophia says, "I've been thinking about going back to school for counseling." Evan raises an eyebrow. "Counseling?" She nods. "After everything we've been through, I feel like I could help others. I know it won't erase what I've done, but it's a start." Evan smiles faintly. "That sounds like a good idea, a fresh start." The court proceedings against Ryan are brief but impactful. He pleads guilty to harassment and violating the restraining order, receiving probation and mandatory counseling. Evan and Sophia attend the hearing, watching from the back of the courtroom as the judge hands down the sentence. As they leave the courthouse, Sophia turns to Evan. "I don't ever want to see him again." "You won't," Evan says firmly. "Not if I can help it." One evening, Evan and Sophia sit down to discuss their future. The air between them is heavy with unspoken emotions. "I think we've come a long way," Evan begins, "but I don't know if we'll ever be the same." Sophia nods, her eyes glistening with tears. "I don't want to be the same. I want us to be better." Evan takes a deep breath. "Then we need to keep being honest with each other, no more secrets." Sophia reaches for his hand. "No more secrets." Months later, Evan and Sophia move into a smaller home in a quieter neighborhood. It's not the grand house they once shared, but it feels like a new beginning, a place to rebuild without the shadows of their past. Sophia begins her counseling program, pouring her energy into her studies and finding purpose in helping others. Evan, meanwhile, accepts a promotion at work, proving to himself and his colleagues that he's moved beyond Ryan's sabotage. Their lives aren't perfect, but they've learned to embrace the imperfections. They celebrate small victories, like finishing a home project together or laughing over a shared memory. On the anniversary of their reconciliation, Sophia surprises Evan with a handwritten letter. It mirrors the one she wrote months ago but carries a new tone, one of gratitude and hope. Evan reads the letter, his heart swelling with emotions he thought he'd lost. When he looks up, Sophia is watching him nervously. "I mean every word," she says. "Thank you for giving us another chance." Evan pulls her into a hug, whispering, "I love you, Sophia." For the first time in a long time, they feel truly at peace. As the seasons change, so do Evan and Sophia. They take a trip to the lake where they once stayed during the height of their struggles. Sitting on the same fallen log, they reflect on how far they've come. "I used to think we were broken beyond repair," Sophia admits. "But now I see that we were just finding our way." Evan smiles, the sunlight catching in his eyes. "We still are, but that's okay." The story of Evan and Sophia isn't about perfection. It's about resilience. They've learned that love isn't just about grand gestures or fleeting moments of happiness. It's about fighting for each other, even when it feels impossible. It's about choosing each other, again and again, despite the scars. As they walk hand in hand along the lake, their laughter echoes through the trees. It's not the end of their story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. And just like that, we've reached the end of Evan and Sophia's journey. It wasn't an easy road, but their story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there's always a chance for redemption and growth. Thank you for joining me on this emotional roller coaster. If you've enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And of course, subscribe to my channel for more incredible stories like this. Until next time, take care, and remember, every ending is just a new beginning.